Are you one of the many self-publishing authors out there who thinks that if you self-publish your book, you will be out of the running forever publishing it with a traditional publishing company? If so, today's myth-busting video is for you because I'm going to be introducing you to a lovely KN literary client who self-published her book with us and subsequently ended up having it published by a major traditional publisher here in the US. So stick around. My name's Kelly Notaras. I'm the founder of KN Literary Arts. We are your one-stop shop, getting you from wherever you are to having a book in your hand. So please visit us at knliterary.com. I also have brought 25 years of publishing wisdom to this exact YouTube channel for free. So please hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you never miss a video. Today's video is something I've been waiting a long time to do, which is to introduce you to the lovely Emory Hall, who is a KN Literary client. She self-published her book through us, and she went on to get a major publishing deal with Hay House Publishers, which, as any of you who follow me know, is a publisher I work with very closely. Had nothing to do with me that she got that deal. And what her story proves is that if you have a great book and you have a proven following for it, you will very likely find a publisher interested in republishing your self-published book. In fact, self-publishing your book actually positions you super well. The publishers will know you're actually committed to getting this all the way to the finish line. It also gives you the opportunity to prove that you have the capacity for book sales. Because if you can sell a couple thousand copies of your self-published book, you're almost guaranteed to find an agent and a publisher who will be interested in picking up the rights. This is one of those tried and true myths of publishing that I'm so excited to be busting here today. Emory Hall is a writer, photographer, and creative from Darien, Connecticut. After experiencing tragic loss at a very young age, she turned to writing as her pathway to understanding her grief. Over the past decade, Emory has put aside writing to pursue a successful career in photography. During that time, she lived and studied extensively with communities in Nepal, India, Turkey, Thailand, Australia, and beyond. In 2021, following the birth of her first child, Emory returned to writing as she navigated this new chapter of life. Emory's work explores the themes of the feminine, grief, loss, love, motherhood, and transformation. Emory's debut collection, Made of Rivers, was originally published through KN Literary in June of 2023 and will soon be reissued by Hay House Publishers. So without further ado, I'm happy to introduce you to Emory Hall. I wanted to start just by asking you, how did you take on the identity as a writer? Like, what brought that into your world, and what kind of a writer do you feel like you are, whatever that means to you?
Prior to publishing my first book, I had a 10-year career in photography. It was a creative outlet for me in a language, just a visual language, and I loved it, but I did kind of feel like something was always missing. Just in my creative soul, I was yearning for something else. I kind of circled back to writing after a long pause, and I was had this sense of I've always been a writer. That is my creative home. I've always written poetry. Even now, looking back in my journals as a little girl, I would write it in my own cute little 7-year-old way. I definitely consider myself a poet. I write purely from emotion and my own just kind of inner experiences.
So one of the things that I saw in your bio was that your writing when you were younger was sort of instigated by grief. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about that.
My sister passed away in a tragic horse riding accident when I was 8 years old and she was 12. And one of the things that my parents did was put me in this grief counseling. And I remember when just showing up and just feeling frozen in my grief and really hesitant to go in there. And I didn't want to talk to the counselor about anything that I was experiencing. And it took her, I think it was over a month of me coming weekly to just even, get words out of me. I just was kind of shut down. One day I'll never forget it. It's a very clear memory for me where she sat me down in the room that we always met in, and she handed me a piece of paper and a pen. And she said, if you can't talk about your grief or what you're experiencing or what you're feeling or how much you miss your sister, can you at least try and write about it? And that was the day that, it was like a waterfall moment. It just all came out of me. And I remember finding writing in that moment as a healing tool. My journal was this like blank canvas where I could just express those things as an 8-year-old, as a 15-year-old, and just kind of learn about myself and ask questions and reflect. And it really wasn't until that counselor handed me that pad of paper and pen that I realized how powerful of a tool it was. And it was my best friend that day, and it has been ever since.
So, speaking of writing, these days, do you have what you would call a writing practice, or is it just something that when the spirit moves you, you sit down? I know you're a busy mom, so you probably have to set aside some time. I'm curious how you handle that.
Kind of when the spirit moves me, that's when I have to be moved to write. I can't be forced to write. And that can be tough because with deadlines or trying to fulfill a certain task with my writing, if it's not there internally, I can't force it. So it is very much a when the spirit moves me, and it just happens for me to be at night when I'm trying to fall asleep. When night comes and the world gets quiet and I get quiet, I think something opens there. I write poetry about it where it's like I feel like I'm pulling words from the heavens or something. It's just like this doorway opens up at night for me, and often my work comes through in those kind of quieter moments.
At what point did you start publishing your poetry, and how did you do that in the early days before the book?
It really happened organically and slowly. I feel like when Instagram was first kind of starting and becoming what it is, I was still very much working in like the photography realm. But oftentimes, what I did was um, accompany like a photograph with a piece of writing in like the caption, so to speak. So while people were, I guess, consuming my work visually, there was also this like written piece to it. I often like got a lot of feedback that the writing like really amplified the experience of a photograph. When I was deep in my photography career, I had two gallery events where it was called Stories from the Mountain Kingdom. And it was a gallery exhibit of large format like photographs, but everybody when they walked into the exhibit got a book, and it was pieces of writing attached to every photograph, so people could kind of go on this like double or layered journey of reading about the story behind the photo or whatever. And I feel like that was really the first moment where my writing was consumed like in a larger space by the public. That kind of continued on. And then when COVID happened and the world shut down, I couldn't travel. And all of a sudden, the work that I had been doing was completely put on hold. And I got pregnant during that time. And it was a quiet and introspective time. And I found myself starting to write poems again, like in this different format. Once the photography and travel part of my life, which was so intense, um, kind of went away, this like other writing started bubbling up again. I started writing again and just started sharing it on Instagram. And the reception of it was so beautiful that I was like, I'm just going to keep doing this. This feels like a really genuine and authentic piece of me. And it just built over time. But it really wasn't until COVID that I started really sharing my work more publicly.
It's been, 3-4 years since that happened. And in that time, you started posting on Instagram more regularly. And then you decided at some point to create Made of Rivers, your first book. How did that decision come about?
I actually had a book deal, an offer for a different book pre-COVID from a small little like publisher in San Francisco area for a book on Nepal. It was like going to be this coffee table book, and it was my photography and my writing, kind of like the gallery exhibit distilled into this coffee table book. Mm-hmm. And I got the offer and I got the deadlines, and I was writing the proposal and example chapters. And it was like pulling teeth. Like it was an uphill climb to try and write this book. And I sat down and tried for over the course of a year to write this book. And it just was not coming. I said, maybe it's just not the time. It's not the time for this book to come out. It's not the time for the book to come through. Life happened. And I was in my little writing studio, having just, given birth to my son. And I was just sitting there and I was looking at my work. I had all these poems in front of me. I had my journals in front of me. And I just remember having this light bulb moment of like, should this be a book? Like, should I compile this into a book? It really was a light bulb moment. And I remember I just was like, I scribbled like the word rivers or something. And I started just like pulling all these pieces. And I literally got this box down of all my journals from like the last 10 years, like just, 50 journals or so. I just started like sifting through my old writing and seeing if there was anything I found that felt like it could be a part of this body of work. And once that kind of idea formed, this door opened and really the words just started coming through me like so fast and so easily. And it was the opposite experience of writing for this publishing company and writing for this, coffee table book. It was so in flow, that it all just happened really fast and really naturally. And I was like, oh, this was the book.
And then you made a decision to self-publish it. Did you think about finding a traditional house first, or were you just clear, no, I'm going to self-publish this?
One of the things that I learned, and this is obviously very specific to me, I don't think this is the same path for everybody, but one of the things that moment taught me, was that like when I am writing with an audience in my head, or I'm writing with a publisher's opinions in my head, or my best work does not come through. I don't thrive in that. I can't write for anybody else. It has to be almost as if I'm writing for it to never see the light of day. It's just this intimate moment of me and the page. And from having that experience of being so not in flow with this one book, because there was all these guidelines and like somebody kind of dictating how the book should be, I almost didn't really even consider a publisher at first. I want this book to be what I want it to be. And I trust in that and I believe in that. I went with that trust. I felt like I had something that I could offer and do really well with, on my own, and then prove, to a publisher after the fact, like, here's what I did.
What happened that turned the tide that had you go from self-publication to finding a traditional publisher?
While I did really feel confident and really eager to self-publish, I did have a goal pretty quickly through the process and early on through the process of like, okay, I want this to eventually go to a publisher, but I just want to see what I can do by myself first. Once it came out, and I had no idea it was going to be as successful as it was. Like the reception was so beautiful, and it became the #1 bestseller in a lot of categories on Amazon. And I was like, oh, okay, like this felt like kind of like a far off goal of like selling it to a publisher, but now this feels really real. And I think I got to do this like kind of soon. Honestly, it just was a clear next step once the book was out in the world. A lot of because I was getting inundated with emails from independent bookstores wanting to sell it, people wanting to translate it, like the need for more distribution. And it was too much for me to handle on my own.
And so who or how did you find your agent? Who introduced you? Or
I mean, I must have emailed 100 people and maybe 1 or 0.1% responded. But I ended up finding an agent through a writer friend of mine who had published a poetry book and done really well and sold to Harper's. And yeah, I just got on the phone with her agent and went with him. But it was a tough thing. We spent a long time on the book proposal. Can helped me work on it. And it was like it's a huge document and a labor of love. And I worked my butt off on that proposal. And then finally with my agent, we kind of sent it out to a ton of publishers that he felt were the right fit. And again, like it was a lot, it was humbling. It was learning rejection. Despite the fact that my book had, you know, done so well, like it's a hard thing to get people to say yes. And there was definitely, I think, a part of me that was like, oh, this was like a hit and it went viral and it was number one and we're going to get a lot of yeses. And that wasn't the case. Um, it's, it was a humbling experience, and it's just so interesting. I think it's really important for writers to learn the art of rejection and to like make peace with the fact that not everyone is going to resonate with your work. And there's so much that they're looking at beyond just your work. It's the sellability of something, it's the timing, it's the time of year, their cycle, how many, offers they have out on the table. There's so much that goes into it. And I was learning that on the fly. And I'm really glad I did, because it helped build a muscle within me of like believing in my work and knowing that not everybody's going to resonate, and learning how to accept no's. But we did end up having multiple offers on the book. And honestly, it came down to the conversations that I had with the people that would have been on my team, the editors. And the cool thing, I think, for me was like, I had already published the book and it had already been a success. So I felt like in this empowered position to be like, well, to ask, like, what can you bring? A, and B, what's your vision for this second edition, so to speak? And I was only willing to go with somebody who, when they were talking about their vision for the book, it had to align and resonate with what I felt would be true and good for the book. I really sat with Maida Rivers and the energy and of the book itself. Well, what does the book want? What does the book need? It's this energy, it's this entity, and who's going to best serve it. And ultimately, I landed on Hay House and felt like that was the right home for it. But it was a journey to get there.
Well, congratulations. And your new edition will be out in November of 2024. And I'm just so grateful for you coming and sharing this information with us. I know everything you have said will resonate deeply with a lot of people watching this video, and you have just helped a lot of people chart their own course toward publication. So thank you, Emory.
Thank you.